So I did a full knee dislocation at 17. Yeah, so
Richard.
it was dislocated for about 6 hours. I was at the hospital, and it's bad when they're checking your pulse on your foot and everything to see that the blood supply is okay, but my leg's straight, and then at 45 going over here with my foot facing the ground. But they kept coming, and a doctor had pulled the blanket back. Oh my goodness, never seen anything like that. That is a car crash injury. Are you okay? Like, you've got enough morphine that the surgeons come in, we'll try and get it sorted soon. Then 10 minutes later, he'd come back with 2 other doctors, be like, guys, you'll never see anything like this. Pull the blanket back. Like, oh. And all the doctors kept bringing more doctors, and I was like, please God, can someone just put it back in? Right?
Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode on our Lessons from the Game podcast. And as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, Ben Pegna. And today's guest, he has not followed the traditional pathway to becoming an elite rugby player. He has played for England. He has practically won all the championships available in England. He's won a European Cup. But most importantly, he is someone who is resilient, came back from injuries, always stayed in the fight. And then he had the guts to go on Dragon's Den and face the crazy panel. And he is none other than Joe Gray. Joe, welcome to our show, brother. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Very good, thank you. And thank you for the great introduction. It's great to be on the show. So thanks for having me.
I could have done better, man. And then I'm a bit under the pump, just came back from a school run, man. So I definitely make an effort next time to make sure I pick it up a bit. Ben, brother, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, G. Good to see you guys. Yeah, excited about having Joe on. It's going to be good.
Nah, great stuff, great stuff. Right, Joe, so I know you're strapped for time. You're a busy man, not like other former rugby players chilling on the beach, going on holidays. You actually got a job. We start off our episode every single time with the same question. If you can give us a quick answer, what is one of the lessons that you have learned from the game of rugby, which we all love, to our aspiring coaches and young rugby players?
Probably number one lesson I learned from my career is just hard work is the most important thing. And I say that from a player that's played with Carlos Spencer to Marcus Smith to some players you would have never heard of. And hard work outdoes talent every day of the week. Like, I've seen some of the most talented people throughout my career who drift off and don't quite make it. And I've seen some bang average people who work way harder than everyone else to become superstars. So something I always lived by was hard work is your X factor.
I think you were following me back in the day in 2009 on Instagram, because that was what I was sharing a lot. Hard work beats talent. So
yeah, more about that.
All right, my man, we're going to kick off the show, right? Because you on Dragon's Den, all right? You've played at the highest level. You had an unbelievable career, tough career, which we'll be deep diving to. But being on Dragon's Den, having guys like Gary Neville, Sarah Davies, if I'm not mistaken, and Stephen Bartlett, take us through that experience, because I'll be honest with you, I would be freaking shit scared out of my mind in front of the telly, putting myself out there. A lot of rugby players in France have been now approached for the show you're called Qui va être mon associé, which is the equivalent of Dragons Den. But man, take us through that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. Like, as you can imagine, we did a pros and cons, me and my co-founder wife, about whether it'd be worth doing or not. They reached out to us and asked if we wanted to go on the show, which was bit of a curveball, but incredible. And then we decided it would be worth going on just for the eyeballs on the brand and what it could do for us in elevators. But it is by far the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I played in sold out Twickenhams and Eden Parks and done incredible things in my career. Nothing compares to walking over a line and then saying everything you say and everything you do is filmed until you walk back across this line, and you walk through the doors, do the lift, go in, they give you a cross, and then they step away and lights flash on, dragons are there. And we're in there for 3.5 hours, which was just an absolute blur of time. Actually, when I walked out, my back basically went into spasms that have been tensing my ass the whole time because I was so nervous, like talking. But it was just, it was an incredible experience. Like, it was a once in a lifetime experience that you'll never get to do again. And it worked out to be incredible for us. But the weird thing is, you cross that line, you do the 3.5 hours where you just get destroyed by dragons, and you straight away realize it's a TV show. They come back 3 hours later with the same question on some numbers and EBITDA and things that you answered 3 hours ago to try and catch you out with a notebook, and they've written it down. You have no paper, you just have to do. It's basically a memory test, which Lottie did incredibly well on.
Yeah.
And then when you walked out, we didn't hear from them again for probably 10 months until it's aired. You have no idea what to do. You don't know how we're going to do it. And then they're like, your show's next week. you're on next Thursday. And that's it, 7 days before. That's the only notice you get. So they have all the rights to edit it however they want. So that's also terrifying because we did a whole little launch of it and rented a mini cinema and invited sort of friends and family who had helped us along the way. But the first time we saw it was the first time it was on TV. So you have no idea how it's going to be clipped, which is also terrifying.
Oh man, that would terrify. Taking from my experience, when I stopped playing rugby and started going into the corporate space, pitching my team building sessions and resilience sessions with them, that I was already nervous just doing that. Going on telly, I can imagine. But honestly, Cole, which was more scary? Playing your first test match for England or going on to Dragons Den? Because what you just described, it sounds like an All Black game. When we used to play the All Blacks, they just keep on coming back. They don't stop. You think you got the game in hand, they'll just keep on coming back at you.
It was exactly that as well. They picked and went and scored in the last minute when we almost beat them at Eden Park in 2014. So it was exactly that. It just kept coming back. It was very different. So I was like super nervous and super excited about my first cap. And I've been on several tours and I've been about 5 years in the making where I almost had it, had some injuries, was in, then didn't play. And I've been building so long. I was super excited, super nervous. The Den was so unknown that in rugby, you play your whole career from grassroots to A-League or second team games to first team, and it gradually builds and you sort of build yourself up to that. That walking across the line with TV cameras floating around you and people going mental flying into your business was just so unknown. That was more terrifying because I knew going against the All Blacks, I sort of knew what to expect and how I had to go about my own business, and I'm in control of what I put out there. As soon as you cross this line, you have no idea what's coming. You can't prep for the questions. You don't have a clue what's going on. So that, just because of how unique it was more terrifying. And also how many eyeballs are going to watch it. Like they said, it's up to 20 million people will see you. So.
It's great, man. Look, we are ready to geek out to this, but we're going to hold the horses a little bit. We're going to break it because I can see, I haven't seen Ben smile like that in ages, and
You know what?
He's ready.
You know what it is, G? It's funny because we talk about preparation giving you confidence, don't we? But when you're completely outside your comfort zone like that, it sort of, you can feel a bit sort of naked, can't you? Because Joe, you talked about having been through that years and years and years of preparation. That's given you so much confidence to that moment. But also we talk about controlling the controllables. We've spoken about that. But when so much is outside your control and you walk into that environment, I can imagine it must have been super intense.
Definitely. And we did loads to try and help it. So we got some friends, investors, family, former players, and we did Zoom calls. And me and my wife, co-founder, would stand on the Zoom call and we just go, do devil's advocate, hammer as hard as you can on anything. So every time we did that, there'd be questions come out that you were not expecting that you had to sort of fumble through. But we did loads of that in the few weeks before the filming just to try and almost nail off everything we could. And then we did it head to head, me and my wife. So I'm product based of the company. So she'd hammer me on products and, I could make it better and cheaper. And I'd have to work my way through. And then I'd hammer her on numbers because she's CEO and runs it. So I'd be like, well, your EBITDA is not good enough. Your profit's bad and all of this. So then we'd have to work out. So there was a lot of sort of playing devil's advocate and hammering each other to try and get a bit more comfortable. But as you say, when she crossed the line, I had no idea. And we got told about 40 minutes and it's 2.5 hours. So.
It's awesome. Before, I don't want us to geek out right now, so I'm just going to change angles a little bit. Yeah, Joe, you didn't follow a classic pathway to elite rugby career. And if I'm not mistaken, when we jumped on the call a few weeks ago, you mentioned that, you didn't go the classic private school route, which we see in the UK. And, you were sending out your CV to clubs. Take us through that journey, when you were out, when you were starting, how did you go? Because that really interests me.
Yeah, so I basically weirdly went, my brother's a few years older than me, and he went to rugby on a Sunday at our local club, and I went and watched, and it looked so fun with people hitting and wrestling and stuff, and quite a boisterous lad. So I joined in at the end as an 8-year-old, and he was 11, and I loved it. So then the next week, my mum and dad took me down with my cousin to do under 8, so that's where I started. Fell in love with the sport, absolutely loved it. I was sporty anyway, I did lots, but rugby I absolutely loved. Cone of chips at the end, climb the trees, have fun, enjoy rugby, and fell in love with the sport. And then I went to school in a comprehensive school in Nottingham. They didn't play rugby, so there was no rugby at school. So I just continued playing at club. And then I basically managed to get through and play England 16s, which was very much like, who's your school headmaster? Who's your rugby coach at school? And I didn't play. But in the first trial to get me there, there's probably 7 trials you had to go through to get me to the place where I got to play England 16s. In the first one, the private school teacher came for that one game to run it. He just picked the private school boys. And I'd actually played like county a few years before when they weren't bothered because it wasn't England yet. So I was on the bench as the third hooker on the bench. So they played the 2 private school boys. I didn't get any time. It was basically final whistle. There was one more player. And they said, "Oh, Joe, you can go on now." And the selectors were there to pick the team to go through to get in the trial system. So I was fuming. And basically they passed the ball down the wing. The winger dropped it just as I was about to tackle it. And I just thought, "Yeah, I'm going for it." So I just lit him up as hard as I could. And I actually drove him out into the parents. About 4 parents skittled over everybody. Final whistle went because the ball had gone out. And then I got up and I was like, "Oh, that's bullshit," because I'm not going any further. And then the selector called me at the end and said, "That's one of the best things I've ever seen. You just took out 4 parents to show me what you're about. You through." And then I went all the way through and played England 16s, England 18s while I was 16 a year young. Then I played England 18s again, and I'd already done it. And in the camp, they're like, everybody's with their academies. We see Harlequins, Southampton Saints, Newcastle, Leicester. But if you have not, any of you, there's 1 or 2. Once you play 18s, they're all over you and you'll be in an academy system. And I was just like, I've already done this last year and I'm still not in an academy system. Same thing. Who's your school rugby teacher? We need to get on to them. I don't play rugby at school. So then they're like, "Oh, we'll see what we can do. We'll get into Leicester Tigers, you're Nottingham. We'll try and get something sorted." Nothing happened. So my dad took it upon himself to buy a book. Back in the day, it wasn't like the internet now where you can just find email addresses really easy. So we bought a book with everyone's address of all the professional teams. And we wrote a handwritten CV, did all my accomplishments, playing 18s while I was 16, 2 years early, etc. And we sent it to all the clubs and just said, "I'd love an opportunity to showcase what I'm about. I want to be a professional rugby player." And I got 2 trials off the back of it. So I got Harlequins for half-term camps, went down to the academy and trained. And then actually Northampton Saints at the time, the coaches of the academy were Rob Hunter and Ali Geefer. It's the Exeter forwards and backs coach. But they were my academy coaches at Northampton where I ended up. But they actually got special dispensation from the RFU to play me in trial matches in the Monday Night A-League when I was 17 as a hooker. So I'd finish school, drive up to Northampton, play against Leicester Tigers, and they'd have like Shooter coming back from injury or someone crazy, or Henry Tuolangi at 8, and I was 17 jogging on, playing, and I did really well and really enjoyed the challenge, and ultimately got the contract off the back of that. But quite unique way of doing it.
That's awesome. I love that. I actually played with Rob Hunter at London Scottish back in the day.
What a man. Love it.
Yeah. I still always he was funny. He's had a good career. They've had a great career at Exeter, haven't they? They've done really well. That must have been a brilliant experience in Northampton. And then where did it go from there, Joe? How did you did it go as you thought it would?
No, so there's a big hurdle before I got started, really. So I'd done all my trials. I actually got offered by Harlequins and Northampton Saints, and then Saints being an hour away from Nottingham, they actually gave accommodation and Harlequins didn't. So the difference was I had my academy accommodation and it was an hour away. So it was an easier sort of sell for me. So I agreed to Northampton Saints, went in. It was the best day of my life, actually. It was Thursday. I passed my driving test. So I drove down to Northampton with my mum and dad. Rob Hunter offered me a contract, so he did incredibly well, 2-year academy contract. He said, "We just need the weekend to write it up and we'll email it over." And it's perfect. So I drove back. And then on the Saturday, I had a cup match for my local club, Nottingham, I was playing for. So I played in that, and I picked and went down the blind side to try and score. And as I went to the corner, someone tackled me towards touch. So I locked my leg out, stay in as I went. And just as I bent my leg to go down to the ground, 2 other people hit me. And just as you bend your knee, it basically makes your MCL a bit lax. Just as I bent my knee, 2 people hit me and my MCL snapped. But as that happened, so did all the other 3 ligaments. All 4 ligaments snapped, and my leg swung around. So I folded over my leg. My quad was straight and my shin and foot came up the side of my body, and my foot was under my armpit. So I did a full knee dislocation at 17. So we dislocated for about 6 hours. I was at the hospital, and it's bad when they're checking your pulse and your foot and everything to see that the blood supply's okay, but my leg's straight, and then at 45 going over here with my foot facing the ground. But they kept coming, and a doctor had pulled the blanket back. Oh my goodness. Never seen anything like that. That is a car crash injury. Are you okay? Like, you've got enough morphine that the surgeons come in, we'll try and get it sorted soon. Then 10 minutes later, he'd come back with 2 other doctors, be like, "Guys, you'll never see anything like this." Pull the blanket back. They'd be like, "Oh, and all the doctors kept bringing more doctors. And I was like, "Please, God, can someone just put it back in?" And it was about 6 hours of every doctor in the hospital being like, Jack, come and see this. You'll never see anything like it again. So,
Oh
yeah,
my
that's pretty
good.
terrifying. But speaking of Rob Hunter, he was incredible. So he came and saw me in hospital. So I had to have a massive operation, and I got told I'd never play rugby again. I almost lost my leg because the artery bends
Wow.
and sort of. So I had loads of tests to see if I needed to be amputated from my knee down.
Jesus.
Thankfully, the artery had bent because I was young. So they said, right, you don't need to have an amputation, but you won't run again. You'll walk with a limp, and rugby's off the table. You're not doing any sport again. And Rob Hunter actually came to see me, and he said, obviously, you're not signed academy play, you haven't signed your contract, we were doing it. But he actually spoke to me about how he played for Scotland A and fractured his skull. And he said, actually, the doctor said you won't play again. Like, you fractured your skull, it could your brain, blah, blah, blah. And he just said, doctors don't know who we are. He said, doctors don't realise what rugby players can do. I went on to have an incredible career, and I know loads of people have been told they'll never play again. And it's your choice at the end of the day. You make it happen or you don't. And if you want to play again, you'll play again. I believe that. And that stuck with me a long time. I was sat in hospital there, just got told I'd walk with a limp. And then my decision was I wanted to play anyway, but that really fueled me on. That I had 18 months out. I had about 7 months to learn to walk again. I was on crutches. Had to try and bend my leg. Then I did a test where you do a quad and hamstring test. You probably know it, where you do like 10 fast, 10 slow, and 10 like really slow, and it does your power of your hamstring and your quad. I did one of them tests, and they were like, you need to get it within 5% of your good leg. So I did my good leg at certain, and I thought I was doing pretty well on my rehab journey. I was about a year, 40 months in, and my right leg was 400% weaker on my hamstring and quad. And they were like, you need it in 10%. And I was like, oh shit. So I did a lot of work to get it back when I was at Northampton. But Rob and Ali were awesome. So they got me, I didn't get paid because I hadn't signed my contract, but they gave me the academy housing. So I went there after I learned to walk again, and I trained fully with them like a full player, but I wasn't paid. And then that's when I started my coaching journey, is that to get paid when I finished training at 2, I drive over to the local school and I coach the local school until about 6. And then I did that like 4 days a week to get my money in my first year.
That's incredible. So, yeah, I love the way you casually drop in, and then I had to learn to walk again.
Yeah. And it's mental when you actually think about it. It was like they'd put paper cups in front of me with my crutches, and they'd be like, you've got to lift your leg over the paper cup. And I just like kicked the paper cup, and I could not, because my knee bent bad, and you control of your muscle. I just like, it took me ages to learn to get over, and then heel toe and all this stuff.
That's amazing.
You know, Joe, when I connected with you, I did my research, and so you had a great year. I think about 179 games for Harlequins. That's massive, and I know you've practically won every single title if it was available to you. So well done on that. But man, tell me about the time you went to Saracens. How did that happen? Because I think that's an interesting story, and once again, just shows you your hunger that you have. Can you take us through that journey when you went to Saracens?
Yeah, definitely. So I basically started in Northampton Saints, like I said. I did a few years there. So once I got back fit, I started playing for first team a bit there behind Dylan Hartley. I did a couple of years and wasn't progressing like I wanted because I sat behind him and he's playing for England. So I moved to Harlequins when Conor O'Shea came in. Had an incredible career there. Like, we won the Premiership, the Challenge Cup, the LV. Conor was just an incredible coach that really got a young team with Danny Curtis, Rob Shaw, Mike Brown, myself, Joe Marler, like through sort of careers, basically started us off incredibly well. We won some stuff, which I loved. And then Conor moved on to Italy, and John Kingston took over, who was a forwards coach. And my England battle was fought with the forwards coach, Graham Roundtree, who basically wanted a really big physical hooker. He used to like show me clips of Samoans just sitting people down, and he's like, I need you to do this. And I've never sat anyone down in my life. Like, I am a defensive technique hooker. Like, I'll make 25 tackles in a game, won't miss any. I'll make some dominant shots, but I will hit 100% line out and I'll scrum them off the park. But carrying, I'm a tip specialist. I'll pull her out the back. You know, I'm not the biggest man in the world, so I'm not going to sit anyone down. So I had a long fought fight to play for England, which I finally did after several tours and about 12 uncapped games. And then when Conor left, Graham Roundtree got sacked by England after the World Cup, and he came into Harlequins as a forwards coach, to my disbelief. And then basically I was there for a couple of years fighting the battle I'd been fighting, international, but just for club. So basically it got to the end of my 2-year contract there when he'd been there. He said he wasn't going to keep me. I've been injured a little bit that year. Anyway, so I broke my thumb a couple of times. So I basically had a Bennett's fracture where you break the bottom of your thumb, and it felt like dislocated. So I did it in the first minute of a Gloucester game, and I went to third line out and my thumb popped out, punched it back in and threw it. And then I played that for 80 minutes. And then we had a Heineken Cup game against Wasps, which they needed me to play in. So I was 4 weeks post, and they said, we really need you in this game. So I strapped it up and played, and then I re-broke it and needed a big op. So that was a stupid decision. But again, that's what you do for rugby when you get to play. And then I basically injured for a lot of the season. Got to the end of that season, and I didn't have a contract from anybody. They said I'd been injury prone. I hadn't played that much rugby. So we're searching around for a contract, and there was none available. So it basically got to the end of the season, and I didn't have a job. So lots of my friends that had been in that situation before, then moved on to coaching or the city or whatever they wanted to do. But I was 29, turning 30, and I was like, I don't feel like I'm done, and I definitely don't feel like I got a fair rub at the green saying that I'm injury prone when I came out to play a game for the club and asked me to. So I decided to speak to a few friends. I got given Mark McCaw's number. Tolofua, the French hooker, had basically been having neck issues. I'd heard about that at Saracens, so they said, he's coming back fit and they wouldn't need injury cover. So I just called Mark McCaw, never met him, played against him, but I'd never met him, never spoke to him. And I just gave him a call out of the blue, and I just said, I'm Joe Gray, hooker at Harlequins for the last 8 years. I would love the opportunity to come and train with Saracens. I know Tolofua is sort of in and out of training at the minute, and you might be down a hooker for scrums and lineouts and things in pre-season. You don't have to pay me a penny. I just love to come and show you what I'm about. And if you like what you see, then we can discuss. And if not, keeps me fit for maybe an injury cover in a month's time at another club. And he said, I love the balls on you, Joe, to call me. No one's ever done that before. He said, let me speak to the coaches about that possibility, and I'll get back to you later. And he called me later. He spoke to Al Sanderson and Peely and all the coaches there, and they said, we love that you just came and done this. We start pre-season in 10 days. Come down on the Monday. We can't pay you, but you'll be treated like the Saracens in every other way. So you'll be kit, food, all the stuff. And we'll see how we go. But it's not long-term. Tolofua should be fully fit in 8 weeks. So it will just be short-term. But love you for doing that. So I went down, started training, did really well, loved the culture. It was all about hard work, which fitted my game perfectly because I just a bit of a diesel engine. I worked my tits off, and that's what I did for the team. So I fitted in really well with that I just worked until you pretty much puking on the edge, and that's how I'd always done. So fitted in really well with their culture, loved the way they train and how they play and what the coaches did to get you energized about their systems and style, which was incredible. And then actually Tolofua got back fit pretty much, like as it happened with another hooker called Sperling. And as that happened, Mark said, I'm not sure we can keep you. You've done incredibly well. And as that unfolded, Northampton Saints rang me, said, we've got an injury to all our hookers. We need a hooker for a month cover. And I was like, I've got a mortgage and stuff. I need longer than a month to get me through. And they said, fine, we'll do 3 months. So I signed with Northampton Saints, traveled up and down the motorway 3 hours each way for Northampton Saints. And at week 6 of me being on injury cover, all the hookers were back. I was just holding the bag. Mark Corbin me and said, one of the hookers is done, hanging up the boots. It was actually a younger lad from Tolofua who had done his neck as well. We want you on injury cover. Can you get out your contract to come back? So I went into Northampton Saints, spoke to Boyd, and he was like, yep, no issues with that. Well done. Congratulations. So went back to Sarries, got straight back in. It was incredible. Really enjoyed it. And then fast forward sort of 4.5 months later, winning the double in the Champions Cup and the panel. And this is where the club's incredible. Is like I hadn't played any Champions Cup rugby in the pool stages. And then we got to the semi v Munster, and they said we need a set piece. We got best line in the league. Grade that you're in.
Wow.
So they thought everyone was fit. I went in, and then we won it and played in the final as well, which was incredible. And it was the last one I needed to sort of finish my set in sort of the Premiership in Europe. So yeah, it was incredible.
That's awesome. That's incredible, Joe. Joe, where does that resilience come from? Because, I was going to ask before, if you were told basically you're never going to play again, to pick up the phone to Mark McCall, to do all the other things you've spoken about, to continue to persevere, going on multiple tours with England, not getting an opportunity, to come back from other injuries, to come back and then teach yourself to walk again. Where did all that resilience and perseverance come from?
I think it's probably a taught thing. I'm pretty stubborn. So I'm one of, if I say I'm doing something, I'll generally do it. Like I did drink as a youngster. So all my friends would go out drinking. I said, I'm not going to drink, so I want to be a rugby player. And they're like, how's that going to stop you? I was like, well, other people won't do it. So if I do it, it gives me another level on other people. And I was really stubborn and I didn't drink. So it's something I did. I threw at a lamppost for an hour every night from 15, and it was down a clip through 5 minutes from my house. And I did that every night for 18 months till I went to Nottingham Saints, and I threw a piece of tape on a lamppost for an hour every night because I said I'd do it. And I've always been quite stubborn, and I've always been hardworking. So once I realized that if I could work really hard at something, and I started to achieve things, so I started to become the best thrower in the country because I worked really hard at it. I wasn't probably any better than anyone else. I just worked harder and practiced more, which made me better. I wasn't the best rugby player, but I was one of the fittest. So therefore my stats would be higher than other people. So therefore they'd be like, oh, well, you made 25 tackles. He only made 18. So once I realized that and you start to achieve things, then I think your resilience comes off the back of that, that when someone told me I wouldn't play again, they didn't know me and I'd had other injuries as a youngster that I got back from. So therefore I knew if I worked really hard, then who says I can't play again? If Graham Anthony says I'm not good enough to play for Quins and no one wants a hooker, like who are they to tell me that? Like I've been good enough at other clubs. I've moved around and played, and because I've been injured, I'm also not good enough. I didn't really believe it. So I didn't want to take no for an answer, which I suppose is that stubborn part of me.
That's awesome. That's such a good lesson for the people listening. Sorry, G, go for it, man.
No, it's just, it's brilliant, Joe. That's why we want to definitely pick your brain, because as the show is the lessons from the game, the goal is to share with our viewers and our audience, those of them are listening, how to get through this tough times. And you touch base, you had multiple injuries. And I can imagine, when you get injured, you get frustrated. Sometimes we can go to a dark place. We try and fill that void by either binge eating or binge drinking, taking on bad habits. I've definitely had some bad habits back in my day when I was injured. But you've been injured a lot, and that was also one of the reasons it inspired you to start, your business, which we'll talk about in a sec. But tell me first, how did you stay in the fight? That's what intrigues me. Multiple injuries, staying in the fight, being consistent, still pushing yourself. Like, what was driving you? I know you said you were stubborn. That's fine, and you had that work rate and work ethic when you were younger. But what was pushing you during those times when you were getting injured repeatedly and keep on staying in the fight? That's what intrigues me. How did you get through that times?
So I had a lot of injuries. So I had 15 operations throughout my 16-year career. So I had a lot. So most summers I'd be having a shoulder op or a knee op or something going on. And I made mini goals throughout them periods. So I always knew I had an injury at the start of my career and I knew that I could get back. But what I had to do in that 18 months was I had to get the swelling down on my knee in the first 2 months. Then I had to work on my knee bend for the next 2 months to get it to 90 degrees. And when I got to 90 degrees, I had 2 months of learning to walk again, where I had to bend it over a cup. And then after that, I could get on a bike. Then after that, I could row. And then after that, I could build leg strength. Then I could go to running straight line, change of direction, building touch games to contact. So I always had, like, from the very start, I had 15 goals I had to tick off to get back playing. And then every time I got injured, I'd have a tick list again, almost like in my brain of what I have to tick off to get back playing. So instead of me going, crap, I'm out for 6 months because I've had a few discs done in my neck, or I'm out for 3 months because of my shoulder, I go, right, I've got 2 weeks of nothing where I can't do much, which is going to be pretty shit. But then the next 2 weeks, I can start working my range and I can get on a bike and I can do bits. So I'd always break it right down into small goals. So it's not overwhelming as 18 months is overwhelming for most people. And be like, fuck it, I'm not doing it. Whereas I actually broke it down into really small goals that I knew were achievable. And once you get through sort of half of them, you're then on the way back to your end date of where you want to get to. So I was very good at doing that. And I suppose my drive is, from a youngster, I was pissed off that I went to a comprehensive school. I loved the sport, but people kept asking me who's my school teacher, who's my rugby coach. And I felt a bit hard done by that. And that I wasn't really good enough to get there. So I always had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. And I always wanted to prove that I was the best. Like, I still think for a period of my career, I was one of the best hookers there was. And I didn't get the caps I probably felt I deserved at the time, or some of the recognition. But also now I look back as a retired player, I think I squeezed every bit of juice out of my career I could have in terms of maximizing my potential as not the biggest, not the fastest, not the best ball carrying hooker, but actually all the bits I was really good at were all the bits that took almost no skill. Like me tackling 25 times, I would fly at your shins if you ran at me as hard as you could. I would run as hard as I could at your shins and make you do a front flip over me because you're not going through me. And that was my mentality. Like, I had to no skill. I just had to have a bigger mindset than you, that I was coming harder than you there. Line out. I know it takes skill, but I actually practiced that in hours and hours and hours and 10,000 hours, whatever it is. I did that to make that skill. Set piece, I started young as a scrummaging hooker. And I knew that if I got really good at this, that becomes a point of difference. And you start seeing people get picked because they're good scrummaging hookers and set piece hookers. So that could differentiate me. That became a really big skill of mine. But I was stubborn, like I say, but also I had a bit of chip on my shoulder that I wanted to prove what I could do to myself and to everyone else. But I believed, even now, I believe I could have done more. So that's just, I think that's just who I was. And I was that young kid on the park throwing at a lamppost and running around the block while everyone else is smoking a bit of weed, I think, and all that. So.
Ben, it ties into what you're always saying, amplifying your strengths, right? And not just focusing on your weaknesses.
Yeah, do you know what I find really refreshing about these conversations we're having with different people is I think there's some surprising elements that people listening will hear. One of them, and then there's some other stuff that keeps on coming up. So the work ethic is one that keeps coming up, but the processes, putting those processes in chunking, small chunks, I take this 2 months, these are my targets for these 2 months. And the other bit that you alluded to earlier, Joe, when you were talking about learning to walk again, was you sort of alluded to the depth of knowledge of your body. And I guess and when we've spoken to other people, they've sort of learn about their anatomy, and it's just been part of that. If they have knowledge of what they need to do, they can find a way of improving it. And I guess that led into like understanding more about recovery and more about your body. And then maybe that was a natural progression that you've now taken through, you continued through your life, just learning about those from those injuries and what you had to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually always wanted to be around rugby. So if I hadn't made it as a rugby player, I wanted to be a physio in rugby. Like I just wanted to be in rugby. And I was one of the nurses that sits with the physio and talks through what my injury is, what's X, Y, and Z, why has that happened. And I've learned quite a lot about it. And then in 2018, when I was out of my thumb, when I had my double break, my operation, I was doing loads of running on the edge of pitch because I couldn't do contact. And I got Achilles tendonitis real bad, just like out of the blue, but it was like killing me. Like every time I went out and run, it's so stiff and sore. It'd be really sore for 20 minutes, then it'd ease off as I got going, and the next day it'd be the same again. And I was speaking to physio, like, oh, it's just niggly, it's sort of what it is, and you just have to manage it, but it'll probably be with you for most of your career because they're quite hard to settle down. So I was running, and they sent me for a shockwave therapy, which is basically where you have a machine that hammers the hell out of your Achilles, and what that does is numb the area, bring blood flow to the area, which they don't get very much blood flow, so that helps sort of heal it, etc. So I did that. Felt incredible for 2 days, was running pain-free, and then on day 3, all of a sudden the pain came back and it started building back. So spoke to the physio, they're like, it's quite an expensive treatment, we'll try and get it in where we can. And at the time I was injured, I'd had my thumb operation. I'm also a trained carpenter, so I did night college for a few years, so I was fitting my kitchen. And I was, after training, I was bored of doing cupboards or something. So I saw my jigsaw going back and forth as I was cutting some wood, and I was like, that is just like almost like the hammer I had the other day. So being bored, I just like basically filed down the blade and like welded on a stool leg onto this jigsaw, and then did it, and it was like, going back and forth. It's like identical to what I did. So I started trying it on my calves. It felt amazing. Did it on my Achilles, and also I got up, did some like calf raises and hops, and I was like, my Achilles is like pain-free again. So I just made this expensive machine that I had to go into London to get, just out my jigsaw for 40 quid. So started using it on my Achilles, and I went into training, did it before my run. The changing room erupted, bright yellow jigsaw, loud as anything, going crazy. As you can imagine, 60 lads in a rugby changing room just like ripped the shit out of me. I put it back on my bag. I went into my run. It's pain-free. I was like, God, my Achilles so nice. This is amazing. And as I walk in, I just heard like from the car park, and it sounded like builders were in the building, but it was obviously lads using my jigsaw. Yes. So as I'm walking, Carl Tinker was doing his hips. And he's like, oh, fucking crazy. This is incredible, going to town. Someone else is having a go. The funny thing was, before I went out for my run, I tried to give it people. They're like, get that away from me. You're not touching me with that. There's no way you're using that. And by the end of the day, about 7 lads had asked me to build them one. So I went to B&Q on the way home, bought some jigsaws, welded them down. My dad was an engineer by trade, so his career was that. So I told him what I was doing, and he was like, oh, that's quite a cool concept. But he was like, you cannot be selling them a stool leg on a blade. He was like, you're going to get sued if that's soft and on. And like, well, how else would I do it? And then me and him brainstormed for probably a day or two, and we came to like this coupling where it pops on and off, and I can do different size heads, and different angles of a triangle and things. So I created that and welded that on, and then the club bought some, a load of lads bought some, and then the business sort of, that was the seed of the business. But I came home and my wife was like, what are you doing? Just fit the kitchen. Like, what are you doing building these things? And I showed her, and then she said it's a pretty cool idea, but she works in the city. She's a big business woman in the city, very impressive. And she was like, why would we just sell jigsaw massages? I was like, oh, flog loads of these, we'll just make massages. And she said, you've been in England, elite sport, professional rugby player for 13 years at that stage, 12 years. I do marathons and hockey and like CrossFit, and I'd love to have some of the insight you have into like elite level sport recovery and how you can look after your body and maximize it. Why don't we make a like home of sports recovery, like an elite optimization like website where we're basically a company that's just going to help you reach your peak performance with loads of different protocols and loads of different products. And that got us thinking, and that's where sort of MyoMaster was born. It was going to be called Muscle Master, and then I was on the physio bed and we were talking through company names for the company, and physio said, have you ever thought about myo? In the medical journal, myo means muscle. And I was like, Muscle Master, MyoMaster. And then everyone was like, oh, we like that. And that was the business name done. And then fast forward sort of about 9 months, we launched, and I was making jigsaw massages in my spare room because no manufacturer would make them. And it was around the time just before you'd seen a massage gun. So that was basically when we did it. And then a year later, you can buy massage guns on Amazon for 50 quid, but it's mental. It was like none when we were doing it. So people went wild.
Wow, that's amazing. It's, I think firstly to have that initiative to do that, and I know being in a rugby locker room, it's not always easy. Guys really rip you to shreds. And I just see this recurring theme every single time. You don't have any fear. You're not scared of someone saying no. You're not scared of someone telling you it's not possible. And you've constantly overcome those obstacles. Man, it's impressive. It's inspiring. And we're going to talk about MyoMaster in a bit, because I think I would really like to understand a bit better how it got started. We heard the seed, but recovery, this is your business. Okay, right? You guys provide solutions for elite athletes to help them improve their recovery. And seeing that our audience are rugby players, and I've seen firsthand where recovery plays a massive role. You can train all the techniques, you can do all the drills, you can be as fit as you can, but if you're not taking care of your body, what advice would you give to rugby players, whether they are semi-professional or amateur, but especially if they're elite athletes? What should you be doing to make sure you can optimize your recovery so that you can actually optimize your performance?
Yeah, so I think it's a massive one that lots of the great players I played with, Chris Robshaw, Jamie Roberts, like all these people have spoke about it being like the extra 1% that other people might not do. And you can add them 1% up, and it actually makes a decent difference when you get to 5% or 10%, and you've done all these little 1%ers. So if you see recovery in that way, that it's not a massive, I'm going to get 50% better overnight, but if you add 1% in, you will get better over time. It's inevitable. But also, some of them lads said as well that like your body is your tool. Like, you're not going to be a rugby player or an athlete or achieve your dreams if you don't look after your tools. Like, you look after your car, you get it MOT, you look after that. If you didn't and you just ran it into the ground, it'd be a bag of crap. Like, you're not going to get the best out of it. So it's trying to make sure you treat your body in the same way, and that's where recovery can come in. And there's loads of different protocols you can do. We sell like cold water immersion range, which is ice baths, and there's loads of science behind doing that in the morning, and it can help boost testosterone, to try and help obviously in that way. There's doing it post to help sort of muscle recovery if you're doing endurance or you're stiff and sore. There's different ways of doing that, sauna protocols and stuff around that, stuff about leg compression and everything, hyperbaric chambers. There's lots of stuff, but the number one is like really simple for everybody. It's just like sleep and nutrition are just like your foundations. Like, if you sleep 8 hours and you try and sleep in the best way possible in terms of like no blue light, an hour before bed, having a cool room that is comfortable, and you get all them fundamentals that you can get the correct amount of sleep, that will do way more than buying a massage gun. Like, that will do a million times more. If you eat correctly, it's that old saying, you can't out-train a bad diet. And it's so true. Like, you need to fuel your body. Again, the car analogy, you're not going to buy a Ferrari and then pour vegetable oil in it to run it. Like, you're going to give it what it needs. So it's them two are the fundamentals for recovery, for especially sports recovery. And then other things help them 1% top-ups of that. So lots of people, we sold like millions of pounds worth of cold water immersion stuff over the last year. And loads of people get it because they're a rugby player and they don't want to be a sore, or they're a weightlifter and they do it in the morning to be their session to help with their muscle growth, etc. But when you go back to them 3 months later, 99% do it for their mental health now. They do it because it's a challenge you have to overcome first thing in the morning, that every day you look out that window at your ice bath and you look at it, you go, I don't want to be anywhere near you. Like, I don't want to go. And I did it for 18 months, like pretty much every day. And from day one to 18 months later, I'd look out the window and be like, you bastard. Like, I don't want to go in 5-degree water now. I don't want to go anywhere near it. But once you overcome that, then you get a massive spike of dopamine. You feel fantastic. You've achieved your first goal of the day. And you walk out the door like you've had 10 shots of coffee. Like, come on, let's bring it on. So there's also that mental health aspect of that recovery, taking care of yourself. You feel proud of yourself. You feel excited about challenges rather than scared of them. So,
it's funny you say that you're talking about. Sorry, Ben.
No. I was about to say you're talking to like one of the biggest fans with G.
When I was still playing rugby, I used to hate ice baths. I was like a real. Oh man, I was a little girl, man. 30, 40 seconds, just like above my knees. That was it. Above my knees. That is. So then obviously post rugby, I've become an aspiring, well-aged paddle player. And, it's still in my DNA. I try to train every single day. This morning I went to the gym just before 7, got my session in. And I didn't realize in my mind, I'm still young. I'm good to go. I ran a Bronco in the beginning of a season. I did a 5:25, quite proud of that.
Oh, man, awesome.
But what I realized very quickly, my body is not keeping up to this at the moment. And I ruptured a tendon under my foot playing paddle. I ruptured or pulled my hamstring. And then I got invited to play with the Champions League in our club. And it was a big moment for me. It was like playing my first test match for South Africa. And then I pulled my calf as well another 8 weeks later.
Oh, no.
So I realized at some stage, and it was actually before that, I need to start taking care. And it started as recovery. And getting in the ice baths after training helped the recovery. Maybe you can explain the science about that. But then it switched. Then I stopped doing it for recovery, and I can relate to what you're saying for my mental health. That I started, 2 minutes. And I always used to share with Jack now, because they were also doing the ice bath. I said, Jack, I did 3 minutes. He's like, good stuff, Jess. How much do you, Jack? No, we did 10, 12 minutes. I'm like, damn it. But then I started to enjoy it. I just started focusing on my breathing and just being calm. And I think my record went up to, I think it was 15 or 16 minutes. Wow. And that is, and for everybody listening, firstly, I would definitely advise you, if you want to do cold therapy, first advise your medical practitioner. I think that's very important before you start it. So please do that. But yeah, I can definitely relate. Ben, over to you. Sorry, man. I jumped in there.
No, man, that's all good. No, we could talk about this stuff for hours, couldn't we? Because it's funny, we've been on this journey because as players, we had that protocol and they were doing contrasts. So they did different things. Now, everybody talking about it. I remember carrying around a protein shake and people would be like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is a long time ago.
You wanted to be a South African, man, let's be honest.
No, it was like, I actually had before, like, you used to have a cocktail shaker before you get the shakers and people would be like, mate, what's wrong with you? I said, I've got a window of like half an hour because I've got to replace my glycogen or whatever, do you know what I mean? And then I'd be like, but why are you in these cold? Something's wrong with your head, And now it's great to see that people are so much more aware of their well-being, their health and well-being. So it's really interesting. I mean, Joe, when you see that and you're talking about recovery, is it now more health and wellness for the general population as well? Do you find that?
Yeah, there's a massive part now. So we originally started as like the home sports recovery. That's what we wanted to do. And then over the last couple of years, as we've got bigger and grown, we started to see a lot of our customers are just like highly driven individuals. Like they might be CEO of a major company in the city or run a company in the Midlands, and they were very driven individuals or work in the forces or things like that. So all of a sudden it started to go away from Wimbledon tennis ordering our stuff or the British and Irish Lions getting our stuff, which is really cool, like headline acts. You're like, this is wicked. But actually our day-to-day customer and consumer was just a general person who wants to be better. And when you actually got on the phone and spoke to them and reached out to them, or we did a lot of events in the early days where you're stood at the end of races or in like expos, The majority of people just wanted to do something that made them feel better and looked after their body and let them do something they love doing for longer. So you'd either make them feel better mentally or physically. And the other piece was, I love playing football on a Saturday with my friends, or I love cycling, or I want to do triathlons and I'm 55. I'm getting all sorts of niggles and injuries. How can I do what I love for longer? And that's where these bits of recovery could help them do something they're passionate about for as long as they possibly can. But there's definitely both sides. So there's loads of people who do it for the well-being and mental side of it now. And we see loads of them every day. And there's loads who want to continue doing what they love for longer. Like yourself playing paddle, you want to play for as long as you can, the highest level. You're going into it. Your body has a different idea. You have to manage it.
Hey, Joe, just, we've got different people listening. We've got those aspiring players, aspiring coaches. We got all, and people, who are just trying to level up in whatever they do in the corporate space. You spoke about the fundamentals of obviously sleep and nutrition. Other than that, when someone, can you give a couple of bits of advice to anybody listening around what they can be doing maybe as a first couple of steps, and if this is all new to them, if you're talking, they don't know where to start?
Yeah, no, definitely. So as I said, sleep and nutrition are the fundamentals. And then I also think it's really important to have a passion in life. So you go and play paddle. I love training now. Like, I've played so many years injured that I couldn't actually lift any weight. I couldn't do a press up. I couldn't literally do a press up because I had impingement in my neck and so many shoulder off. Now I really like going to the gym and feeling okay. Like, I can actually do a session and I'm not in agonizing pain. So I now train most days, and I find when my mental health is incredible and I feel amazing. So I think finding a passion, something you love to do, is really important alongside your career. And I actually believe I got a better rugby player once I set up the business, because I was driven in trying to make something happen with my business. Then when I was at rugby, I was super driven because I was at rugby to do rugby, but I had to limit my time in either. So I had to do both to the best of my capability. I wasn't playing Xbox and floating about and then perform at rugby and not that fussed. I was really driven when I was at each one. And then the other big game changer for me was just the ice bath category. But the cold water immersion for me is, I was the exact same. At rugby, I hated ice baths. I was a girl. I couldn't be in it longer than a minute. Sprint into the hot shower. I absolutely despised it. And they'd be like, you have to do this much after. And I'd shiver my way through and try and swerve it if I could, because it was disgusting. And then once I finished, I heard about like research around it might help with early onset dementia and all these things that are factors of being a professional sports player in a contact sport. So I was like, I'm going to have to get over it. We were launching our range anyway. So I was like, I'm going to test the stuff because that's part of what I do. So I really got into it that way. And just for my mental health, I think ice baths are incredible, because for that time you're in the ice bath, you can't think about anything else. Like, you can't think about, oh God, I'm going to be late for the kids, or oh, what thing do I have to finish? You're just thinking about getting through that moment in the ice bath because it's so cold. And once you get through the initial snap of coldness, you almost have an inner calm where you breathe your way through and you feel a release of everything. And then when you get out, you get that boost of, it's up to 250% dopamine where you're sky high off the back of it. And for me, I just think that's such a good starting point. And you're not going to start with 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Like my first ice bath, when we set up the range and I was testing it in the garden, it was in winter, it was about 7 degrees. I lasted a minute, and I was so proud of myself for doing a minute. So I wanted to get out after 10 seconds. Like,
that's a good starting point for people. Yeah,
we can get 30 seconds in. If you just don't get the shot of it and go, and get out, you've achieved something because you got in the water. Then the next day you try and do 10 seconds, you do 30 seconds, you sealed it up.
Joe, I'm desperate to ask now. So you mentioned your wife a couple of times, and we can't not talk about her. She's your, obviously, crucial for your business as well. Is she getting in the ice baths as often as you? And can you tell us a bit about the dynamic with the working dynamic and how it works? She obviously had a really good career in the city. And then we've watched Dragon's Den when you guys went on. You spoke a bit about it earlier, but she was obviously incredible on the show as well. Can you tell us a bit about
Powerhouse?
Sorry?
She's a powerhouse. She's impressive. So in terms of the ice bath, she doesn't do them anywhere near as often as me, no. And the first clip we did when we tested it was, I did it for a minute and I was really proud of myself. And then she was like, you only lasted a minute. And this was like first time we were testing our prototype. And I was like, you wouldn't last 10 seconds in there. And she was like, of course I would. And then I was like, go on, then do it. And she dipped her hand in. She was like, I might do it tomorrow. And I basically bullied her into doing it. I was like, you said you could do longer. Come on. So our actual first ad we ran for an ice bath was my wife, Lottie, getting in. And she basically dunks in, goes, oh, I'll lose the mind, looks at her watch and goes, and stands up and climbs out. It lasted about 6 seconds, and she thought she'd been in there about a minute. That's why she looked at her watch. So that was an ad we ran, like, could you handle the cold? And it was Lottie getting in and out in 6 seconds. But she got much better. And again, like everyone else, she started to time it to 30 to a minute, and she got up to 2.5, and she got much better at it. She's an extremely impressive woman. She's my wife, who I love incredibly. But she was a bigwig in the city. So she was like youngest ever member of the M&C Saracens, the ad agency. She was like first female member. She was 24 at that time, 23, 24. She worked her way up the work ladder out of uni and city, moved a few times, got headhunted. And she was flying on a 3-figure salary, doing really, really well in the city. And then she quit everything to run our business, where I carried on playing rugby. And she was on 24 grand a year for many years, which obviously a big drop and a hard decision to make. But we both believed we were on something that was pretty untapped and pretty special, that the feedback we were getting and what everyone was sort of saying about our company and what we were doing was incredible. So we decided to take the leap and like quit and ran the company as CEO full time. She's been doing that 4 years now. And it started from a kitchen table and making drills to me product developing new products and different iterations of things that might already exist, but trying to make them better for what I wanted as a consumer. But we started weekends at races at expos, and we'd work all week, and then I'd be at a game Saturday and drive in the evenings to join Lottie at an expo. And then on the Sunday we'd be there, and we go back, drive a van back at midnight on the Sunday, unload it all, go again. But it was actually a really important start to our business, because every weekend we're chatting to our customers and they were saying, love this. Like the drill, the jigsaw massager. Oh my God, it's incredible. It's exceptional. Fuck, it's loud. Like the only way to work on the volume, because it's so loud. And I was like, I knew it was loud, but I didn't know it was that much of an issue. Then our next generation was a silent massager. And also then I was like, this is incredible, but can I have more power? So then you start with feedback. So your next iteration is powerful and quiet. And that's how you create such a good product range that really hits the audiences, because we were in and amongst our audience on a weekend, every weekend, sort of getting feedback the floor, and then creating, rather than launching products on Facebook ads and see what happened, we were actually right in amongst it. And we did that for the first 3 years, most weekends, which was a graph. Like we had our little boy, and he's a baby at the back of the stall in a pram, and it's 6 weeks after giving birth, and my wife's there selling stuff, I'm selling stuff and feeding the baby back. And that was just part of the sacrifices we made as a couple. But she is a very impressive woman. She's up for Entrepreneur of the Year currently, which is pretty impressive. And as you saw on Dragon's Den, you saw a snippet of what she's like, but she blew them all the way. Yeah, she's pretty much a go-getter, and very similar to me, like for a very similar sort of background. She's worked all her life for everything she's got. She's a grafter, and we both are. So that fits well. The dynamic is a hard thing you spoke about. Husband and wife is not ideal for everybody, and at the beginning stage we definitely clash a fair amount on our thoughts, because we're both trying to do everything. So we're both trying to run the business, do the products. Well, she sees the things about the product, like no one wants that, and I tell her that's a stupid idea doing that business. And then once we created our lanes of what we're both good at and what we both liked, then we made it really clear that we would have conversation and input, but the final decision would be that person. So I'm product development, and I'm the consumer. So I'm someone who would use these products. So I create them, I develop them, and then I also help with the story and the brand in our ads. And then my wife is CEO, so she runs the company. She does the P&L, the EBITDA, everything around how we're going to launch what we do. And then she also does the brand piece, because we're both sort of co-founders. And once we got into that groove, it was day and night from before. Before we were both treading each other's toes, clashing. Afterwards, we were both very comfortable in what we do, and the business grew and flourished off the back of that.
You know, Joe, I think firstly you mentioned it, and I think we need to give recognition to your wife as well. You know, I think a lot of people don't realize how tough it is to be the partner of a professional rugby player. You know, we go through these extreme highs and lows, and, you know, hats off for her as well, constantly pursuing her career, because we do see sometimes where players' wives or partners, they are just content with being just that. And what I definitely picked up from the Dragon's Den episode, that she stands her ground firm, and I can imagine there might have been some tricky situations in your guys' dynamic. But I love that what you just said. once you guys set out the clear lanes, whatever your roles and your jobs, that's also a recurring theme on this podcast. But what I'd like to ask you is that I've been there. That transition period is tough and it's hard, and you want to start the business. And back then, for me, before becoming a full-time rugby coach, it was consulting in the corporate space, doing team building sessions and doing workshops around the scrum and educating coaches, etc. But what would you advise current rugby players, to start putting into place and to be, let's just be clear on that, the main thing needs to remain the main thing, like Anthony Watson just said on our podcast. We don't want you to get sidetracked with it, but I'm sure you can start to anticipate a little bit better. What skills do you believe rugby players should be developing, or what should they be doing to start to help them to kind of anticipate that transition period if you want to launch a project, or launch a business? We just spoke a while back to Francois Hogarth as well. We'll be sharing his pod soon. But what advice can you give current rugby players?
So I think lots of my friends over the years have almost put their head in the sand and gone, I'll get to that closer to the time. And just thought, I need to be 1,000% on rugby and I can't think of anything else outside. And what I got opened up to in my first 18 months was it almost got taken away in one tackle and I was done. So I was really proactive from a young age in doing extras, trying to coach in a school, did my coaching awards, went to carpentry college to see if I wanted to do like maybe property development and fit out kitchens, and found out I was quite good at it, but I didn't like it. So I wasn't going to do that. But what I did was I gave myself time each month, each year, each week to do something on the side outside of rugby to try and broaden my horizon in what I wanted to do when I finished. And I quite quickly found out I wanted to coach. Really, that's what I wanted to do. And then my entrepreneur head started going about maybe rugby camps or what I could do around like train like a pro, and you have professional rugby coaches come in or players. And that was my initial seed. And then the jigsaw happened and it just sort of went from there. But I've always had an entrepreneur side to me about that. But I just say it's making sure that you try different things so you have an idea. I knew I wanted to be a coach, and I'm currently a professional coach as well as an entrepreneur. But my week is split that coaching takes priority. So I coach full time, and around that, I do my videoing, I do my product development, I do my ads, I do all the stuff around that. But I still have ambition to be top class head coach in one of the top clubs in the world. So that is my ambition, what I'm driving for still today, even though I have a company and pushing that super hard as well. But I never set out from day one to be an entrepreneur and have my own business. It's just the way I am with my wife is it sort of went that way. And my wife's always wanted to be her own CEO and run a business. So it fitted really nicely with both of us aligned on that. But I just say to people, like I just said, is just make sure you have different experiences. You use your day off to go to work experience, to go and try things, to get your coaching badges, to do a carpentry course. I did 2 years at night school to do a carpentry course. To find out at the end, I probably didn't want to be a carpenter. I didn't want to be a tradie, but I figured it out, and now I'm really handy around the house. So I don't pay anyone to do it. I don't figure that out, but it's making sure you just put yourself forward to do lots while you're playing, because so many people, as I said, just don't do it. They say, I'll do it at a later date. And I know loads of my good friends finish and they go, what am I going to do? I'm screwed. What am I going to do? They go into a job they then hate, working in the city behind a desk or being a wine and diner at dinners, and they actually don't like it. And I was very fortunate that, probably similar to yourself, you start to figure out what you want to do, and then you plan to get there. So I could have played another year, but I got offered the opportunity with Harlequins to do the rugby program at Scottish and like a hybrid role. So I probably could have played one more year, but actually that's what I wanted to do long term. And I could have squeezed one more year, but actually I could then progress my ladder onto what I wanted to do next. So I took the opportunity, and I've been doing it 3 years, and I've been coaching with England, throwing in the World Cup and stuff. So I've done some incredible things along that journey, but I did prep from 18 years old coaching.
No, it's great. I can definitely resonate with you, Joe, being a full-time rugby coach as well. And what I would like to share with you as well, you spoke about when you were launching your business at the end of your playing career and how that just fueled your rugby as well. And I can tell you this from launching this podcast, speaking to people and having guests like yourself on here and sharing their journey, sharing their authentic selves as well. That fueled me and is giving me so much energy. And I think the thing which is most important thing is that that you need to make sure that you're organized in terms of you. We're in a similar path. I'm a full-time rugby coach. I'm doing the podcast now as well. I'm also mentoring players and coaches online on my coaching platforms. But what I always tell players and what I tell the audience is my rugby coaching job remains the main thing. I make sure I'm organized. Like, this is our week off right now. So now I'm doing some podcasting, changing the scene. It gives me ideas, speaking to you. I'm making notes, gives me ideas. So I'm always thinking of the coaching as well. But I think what people need to understand is about being organized. You can do different things, maybe not master every single thing, but if you're organized and work certain times, that's what I do. But what I'd like to ask you is, before I hand over to Ben, I know he's got another question or two before we sign off. So how do you navigate that? Being a full-time rugby coach, you got the business. How do you identify what's priority at the moment?
Yeah, so it's very much what you said. You have to be organized with your time, and your time management is crucial. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed with everything going on. So I'm very strict with sort of my diary and what I plan. And I know my rugby days are here. I know my blocks when I'm doing my reviewing and my previewing of things around my rugby. And then I know my day off is Wednesday. So if I do all my time management correctly, I've blocked off Monday, Tuesday for rugby and coaching and analysis and everything. Then come Wednesday, I can have a day in the MyoMaster office on my rugby day off, really. But I can then get all my MyoMaster stuff done there, my filming, my product development pieces. And then I know come Thursday, I've worked late on Tuesday to prep for Thursday. So I'm ahead of the curve on my coaching bits again on Thursday. And I am a bit of a workaholic, which you'll probably say that I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy on a Monday, I work till 9 p.m. and my mother-in-law picks up our little boy and does dinner and stuff on that night. But I know I've got a full day Monday from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and I blast it out and I'll have breaks throughout the day and go training and stuff. But that's my day where I can get a load of stuff done. But it's being very good with your time management and understanding that you can't do everything. So when I was probably a bit younger, I'd say yes to everything. And then some things would fall on the wayside and I couldn't deliver. Whereas once you understand your program and what you're doing, then I'm very good now at saying this block is for previewing the opposition's lineouts and doing my menu. This block is for my game analysis of last weekend, etc. So you can start to get that in, and then you get a block of a morning filming with our videographer on ads that they've created that I have to get in budgie smugglers and be in a cold bath for a long time. So you start to figure out your timings, but it's crucial, like you said, to be very, very disciplined with managing your time.
That's awesome. Cheers, Joe. There's some good advice there for everybody. What's next for you? What's next on the horizon?
So I'd like to progress in my coaching career. So I've done lots of cool stuff with coaching. I've been head coach at London Scottish. It's my third season. I went in with a bit of a daunting task that my job was to not be relegated. So they were for a few years before. They had the least money in the league. So my job was basically go there, don't get relegated, which was a big challenge, which I'm sure you realize I quite like the challenge. So took that on and we managed to stay up. And now sort of third season in, we're mid-table, which is incredible for them. But also around that, I've done England throwing stuff with the World Cup of men's and women's and age group, which is very cool. I'm also closely linked with Harlequins. So currently I'm filling in for Adam Jones while he's away with Wales. So I've been doing the full scrum coaching there, which is really good and really enjoyed that. And then for the business side, as we've grown rapidly in the last few years. So we've gone from sort of 500,000 3 years ago to 1 million to last year doing 5 million turnover to growing year on year. Yeah. So now it's really nice that we've sort of grown the team a bit. So for a long time, I had to do sort of everything, product, delivery, warehouse, all of it. And now we've got like the warehouse manager, we've got an operations manager, we've brought in sort of 3 or 4 people, which really does mean that I can step further back each day, which gives me more time to do rugby, which I really do enjoy. So so the long term is to keep progressing with my coaching and also for MyoMaster to flourish and keep growing as it is. So.
Joe, we're running out of time, but it's been amazing having you on. We always ask our guests this final question. What is the main rugby lesson that you've taken from the game that you use in your everyday life nowadays?
It's probably the same as I started with, is that you can't beat hard work. Like everything I've done in my life, I would say the fundamental foundations of it is backed on hard work. And whether that's learning how to run a company, like I never knew how to run a company, and no one would ever start a company if you knew, because it is so hard. But how do you get through to the other side is just keep digging, keep working hard, keep going. And it's the same in rugby, it's the same in sport, it's the same in life. Like it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard work, but I actually do believe the ones that make it are the ones that are willing to work the hardest. And there's loads of way better businesses than MyoMaster, but people have given up because it got too hard for a period of time. There's way better rugby players than me, but they've given up because the injury was one too many or they were out too long. And actually, if you just keep working exceptionally hard in what you can control and what you can do yourself, I am 100% believe you can achieve anything you want to achieve. And I was a young 8-year-old lad, laid in my bed in Nottingham, not knowing anything about rugby, but I used to dream about being a professional rugby player. I used to dream about playing for England. And my mates would be like, yeah, but what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to play for England. I'm going to be a professional rugby player. And at the time, rugby wasn't even professional. But I dreamed about, like, that's what I wanted to do. And I went hard to do that.
That's awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Great stuff. No, Joe, I'm going to say thanks for any last questions, Ben, before we sign off?
We're all good, bro. Yeah, it's amazing. It's really good to have Joe on, yeah.
Joe, I feel we could have spoken for ages, and I'm just watching the clock there. I know you got another appointment. So firstly, thanks for taking the time to join us and having this amazing conversation. And, congratulations on everything that you have achieved. I know it's only the start, and we'll continue to follow you as well. And also, please also send on our congratulations to your wife as well for what you have been following her as well. I could see dynamite in a small package there. All right. And definitely she's demanding respect wherever she goes. So well done on that. I think you guys are really complimentary in the way you work. So well done on that. And, the most important thing is to all our guests, please, guys, there's so much knowledge here. If you found anything that was valuable to you, please reach out to Joe or reach out to the Instagram account of MyoMasters. We'll be definitely putting that in the show notes so you guys can access that and contact Joe directly. And please, guys, knowledge is power. Level up your knowledge around recovery and all the different tools to optimize your performance, but most importantly, optimize your recovery. So, Joe, thanks for taking the time to join us. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe. That would be amazing. Help us to grow the show. And at the time of recording the show, we've gone top 10 in a few countries. So super proud of that. And that's thanks to you guys, our audience, our listeners that have been sharing it all across social media. So please keep on doing that. We appreciate your support. And if there's any other lessons you would like to learn on this episode, just let us know. So Joe, Ben, guys, thanks for joining us. And you guys need to have an awesome day and look after yourselves.
Thanks, mate.
Right.
Cheers.